All right, we are live. Hey, everybody, it is Dr. Barry, board certified internist, founder at drpierre'sblog.com, author and speaker. We're going to give it a few minutes before we get started. Today's topic of discussion is Obamacare, as well as crazy Republicans in relation to Obamacare. And of course, this is something I get all the time. So we're going to do a quick little housekeeping things. You can go ahead and, when you get on, go ahead and like and share like you guys always do. And then we'll kind of get this thing started. Again, I apologize for starting a little bit late today. Just go ahead and share this on my page. Share it to the page. Share it to my personal page. All right, let's get this thing started. So first of all, again, for those who may not know, this may be your first time listening to the Lunch and Learn. I am Dr. Barry, board certified internist, founder at drpierre'sblog.com, author and speaker. And today's episode is going to be on Obamacare as well as Affordable Care Act plan, which is, for those who may not know, the exact same thing, as well as these Republicans and the crazy Republicans here in Congress. As we know, we do have a new president who's going to be inaugurated in a few weeks, and I've been hearing a lot of cries of repealing Obamacare, and me as a personal care physician is definitely something I wanted to touch on, because I have a lot of patients who are actually on these plans. So of course they're worried about what they're going to be doing next year. So let's kind of start this things off. And today's video is going to be a little interesting today. We're going to be incorporating a little bit of technology, so sit tight with me. If I don't see your likes and shares, I apologize. I am actually broadcasting this off my MacBook, and then kind of broadcasting out live. So just sit tight with me. If you're liking and sharing, it's much appreciated. I will go back after this video is done and give everyone their props for coming out to the video. So let's kind of start off. Again, I am a board certified internist practicing outpatient medicine primarily here in Boynton Beach, Florida. And and I work for a hospital, so a lot of my patients in my practice are on the Affordable Care Act plans, quote unquote, Obamacare. And it's something that, since the recent election, they've been extremely worried about, because they're not entirely sure what's going to happen next year. Like this year, they know they're okay, just because from a time standpoint, they're not sure exactly what's going to happen next year. So I get a lot of questions on, what should I, as a physician, be looking forward to for 2018, because that's when we're really going to start seeing changes, if we do see changes, when changes are going to come in that regard. So just to kind of give a background of Obamacare, just to kind of give you some things that were happening before all of the legislation and kind of getting us to where we're at today. We had record numbers of patients who were uninsured, record number of patients who were going bankrupt because of medical bills and liabilities and whatnot. And if you have followed it, in 2008, you know that it took a lot of grit, determination, and a lot of hours just to kind of really get this legislation passed through. It's been something that they've talked about for years, decades really, but never were able to really get the button pressed. So I wanted to kind of give some pertinent positives, some pertinent whys of Obamacare, and then we're going to talk about some myths of the Affordable Care Act plan and exactly what the Republicans plan on doing. So kind of just starting out, let's go into the coverage. So for patients who are on the Affordable Care Act plans, from a coverage standpoint, we know that Obamacare allowed it so that children and adults weren't allowed to be denied coverage because of pre-existing conditions. And we're not talking about like cold flu. We're talking about patients with anemia, patients with diabetes, hypertension. Before this law, Blue Crosses of the world, Humanas of the world, the Aetnas of the world were allowed to pretty much say, you know what? No, we're not going to take you, aka you cost too much to our plan. So you had a lot of patients who were uninsured, not because they weren't trying to be insured. It's just that insurance companies just wouldn't allow it. In that regards, one of the big things that Obamacare done is that allowed students, and this is big, especially for my college age students who I know are watching. It allowed students to stay on your parents' plan until you're 26, because again, before the Affordable Care Act plan, by the time you hit 18, you were pretty much out in the wind. Like your parents weren't allowed to carry you on the insurance plan. So it was very fortunate. You had students who from 18 to almost 25 weren't even allowed to get on insurance plans. One, because they couldn't afford it, but two, because their parents just had to drop them. So it was a very big factor in that regards from a coverage standpoint. This is something I deal with from a physician standpoint. My patients may not deal with it much, but before, insurance companies were actually allowed to deny like a service. Like, let's say you needed CAT scan, and let's say you need some type of service A, and the insurance companies were actually allowed to deny that insurance coverage, that procedure, without actually having a reason why. They could just say, no, we're not going to pay for it, and then that was kind of the end of that. So the Affordable Care Act plan actually put in incentives and allowed you to have an appeal process with it. I know a lot of folks, we focus on the Obamacare aspect of it, but the big thing is, it's called the Patient Care and Affordable Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act plan, because there was a lot of things that, from a patient standpoint, you didn't really have any rights for. And again, before all of this legislation, so it was definitely something big moving forward, especially to be able to kind of fight for your health. Because again, at the end of the day, from a business standpoint, the health of our country was cost us a lot. Now is costing us a lot of money. So being able to have some of those things kind of provision in this plan was some of the big factors. Now there's plenty more, but I just wanted to kind of touch on some of the big factors that my patient's been able to experience dealing with the Affordable Care Act plan. So now let's go to costs. So cost is something that we run into a lot from a financial aspect of it, in terms of like what types of costs were being implemented with the Affordable Care Act plan before and after. And we know that from a cost standpoint, before the insurance plan, your insurance company was actually allowed to cancel your coverage, like if you hit a certain number. Like, so let's say if your health care costs an insurance company, let's say $1 million, and again, this is conjecture, let's say $1 million, your insurance company was actually allowed to stop coverage and say, we're not paying for any more, you've kind of already hit your max budget. So the Affordable Care Plan actually lifted that max budget out of there. It also made insurers have to justify why they were increasing their rates, especially specific over like 10%. Because again, that industry was pretty unregulated to the point where, they can go up, your insurance coverage could go up 10%, 20%, and really no regulation on why it went up. They could say, we're just going up 10, 20%, and you just kind of have to deal with it. So the Affordable Care Act plan, made it like, say, hey, you got to actually, have some, grit and teeth, and we need some documentation of why you need to raise it a certain percentage. And this is important, especially going into the 2017 year, where a lot of my patients who are on Affordable Care Act plans saw their coverage premiums increase. And it isn't something that we were surprised about. We weren't surprised about it just because of the way the law was kind of laid out, and just from a sheer numbers game. When the Affordable Care Act came plan, there was, let's say 4 to 5 different insurance companies within the marketplace. And we know over the years that number has decreased. I know in Florida, I practice in South Florida. So in Florida, that number, I think right now our biggest one, there's like 2. There's, I think, Blue Cross, and then there's Molina Medicaid. So there's only 2 plans that are actually on the Affordable Care Act plan. So again, you could see why cost is going to rise, because now you have, and the big one's pretty much Blue Cross. You see why cost is rising because now you only have one plan that has to cover everybody in the state of Florida. So we understood and we were kind of, prepared that cost was going to increase. And that, surprised a lot of people. I had, patients tell me that their premiums went up 20%, 30%, somewhere up to 40, 50%, which is, which is unfortunate, but with the, just a supply and demand type thing, they were able to, be pretty much the primary muscle group from an insurance company, so they were able to charge what they're able to charge. Now, just some caveat, and again, I'll speak on Florida because I practice in Florida. We know in the state of Florida, our Republican government, state government, refused to expand Medicaid. And I'm actually going to put up a graphic here on, which states actually expanded Medicaid versus not, and why it's important, especially when we're talking about costs being a factor, is that we know that for patients, for states that expanded Medicaid, voted to expand Medicaid, we know that their cost for premiums is much lower. And the reason being is because, you have a more pool of patients in that marketplace, so you have more patients who can pay premiums, so the insurance companies don't have to pay more. So, I want you to take a look at this. Take this one off. So just, take a look at, again, our United States here, and, you'll see, again, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, there's a lot of big states here that, kind of refuse to expand the Medicaid, which is unfortunate, because we know that the numbers from a premium standpoint are much higher in those states who refuse to expand it. And one of the arguments we tend to hear is, well, if they expanded Medicaid, it would have cost the patient, more money. But the Affordable Care Act plan, again, Obamacare, again, and you'll hear me always do this whenever I mention like Obamacare, because it's kind of been, it's really the Affordable Care Act plan. But most people, if you said Affordable Care Act plan, they don't know that that's actually Obamacare. So you have a lot of people who are seeing these increased costs and premiums. But fortunately, because of the Affordable Care Act plan, they have the ability to get increased tax cutoffs because of it. So, it was kind of a yin and yang. Yes, we know your insurance is going to go up, but we're actually going to give you more tax credits associated with it. And then just kind of going on to, and then again, I'll go on my tangent because I am primary care, and I think primary care is the best specialty out there, but again, I'm biased. Some benefits that we saw from a primary care aspect of it, and I'll just read a few out, is that the Affordable Care Act plan, increased funding for training, so we had a lot more residency spots that were paid for by the federal government because of the Affordable Care Act plan. We know that it increased the number of physicians and mental health professionals and dentists in the National Health Service Corps. Which is, if you're not familiar with the Health Service Corps, it's a great program that works on putting, professionals in underserved areas. And after, I think, about 10 years, they forgive all their loans. So again, imagine, average, student might have $100, $150, $200,000 in loans. If they go to work in a certain area for, 10 years, all of their loans are completely forgiven. So it actually doubled the amount of professionals working in the National Health Service Corps. For my physician extenders, which is nurse practitioners, physician assistants, it increased the number and provided funding to increase the number of nurse practitioners as well in that regard. So again, that was a big plus for us in the Affordable Care Act plan. And then what's happening now, what we're seeing in 2017, they're kind of moving forward, and I've been to several conferences now, which they're really big on it. And this is kind of a combination of why care has kind of dwindled here in the United States, and why a lot of patients don't like going to the doctor anymore. Is that the gold standard now is I get paid for seeing a patient, right? I get paid for seeing patient A. And that's it. So the only way I get paid is if I see patient A, or if I do procedures for patient A, or if I do surgery on patient A. That's the only way I'm getting paid. So what tends to happen, because health professionals, they're business minded in and of itself. Now I'm going to see way more and more patients. So when we see more and more patients, you have people getting double booked You have people waiting in waiting rooms for 30 minutes to an hour just to see their physician, because the landscape of how physicians get paid only is based on like the number of people I see. So I have to see more and more people in that short amount of time. So before, where your appointments used to be 20 minutes where you can talk to the doctor and, you know, have a good time, have a good discussion with him, now it's 10 minutes. I'm hoping it's 10 minutes. I was going to say 5, but I'm hoping you're not only seeing your doctor for 5 minutes in that regard. So, you know, now you guys are getting packed in there like sardines because, again, your doctor, again, he's a business. You know, he has loans out the wazoo. He or she, I'm sorry. He has loans out the wazoo, you know, so they got to get paid in one way or the other. So now they're seeing more and more patients. But now what we're going to start seeing, especially starting this year and then really moving forward, is that physicians are actually going to start getting paid for like how well they take care of patients, and not really just like how many patients they see. Which again, I think it's there's some pros and cons to that. I think it's going to really show a benefit of, you know, like if I'm taking care of all of my blood pressure patients, my diabetes patients, my cholesterol patients, I should get paid more for it. But what I can already foresee happening, because I know how physicians work and from a business standpoint, is that you're going to have certain physicians who will probably start, segmenting their patients. So they say, you know what, I know patient A doesn't really like taking care of themselves. I know patient A doesn't like taking their medication. So guess what? I'm not going to see patient A, because now I don't get paid as much for seeing patient A, because patient A doesn't like to take care of themselves. So again, there's some pros and cons, and I totally acknowledge that too, because I got a lot of patient A's who I can say, you know, take medication A, B, and C, and they won't take it, and they come back 2-3 months, and then there's problems because they didn't take medication A, B, and C. So again, we know there's problems are, but there's fixes coming along the way. And the reason why I wanted to touch on this again is because, you know, we're hearing a lot of rhetoric that they're going to repeal the Affordable Care Act plan. They're going to repeal Obamacare. And I can tell you that the likelihood of that happening is extremely low. I don't want to say 0% because, this country has done some things that shocked me. So I'm not going to say 0%, but the likelihood that they're going to just flat out repeal Obamacare is extremely low. So I, as a physician, I'm talking to my patients who are on Obamacare, patients who, if you have friends or family who are on Obamacare, I don't think that's something that they need to worry about, because it's too big right now to go anywhere. I think what will happen, so that's why, you know, again, when you hear Republican congressmen, and I can't even say the president-elect, because even he's backtracking on like repealing it, because I mean, common sense will tell you that you can't repeal it. But when you have these Republican congressmen tell you that, you know, they're going to repeal it or getting rid of it, don't worry, it's out of here, it's not going to happen. And the reason why is because money. And money, unfortunately, you know, makes our Congress world go around. And there's way too much money right now in healthcare, way too much money in the Affordable Care Act and all of the services that are provided to just like yank it out and not have anything to replace it with. And at this point, and again, they've been talking about repealing Obamacare for, you know, since President Barack's been president, and they still haven't shown us any alternative. So I don't expect that to be repealed anytime soon. They haven't shown us any alternatives for it. What I do expect to happen is I do expect them to increase the competition again, as far as, you know, get more insurance companies back in the marketplace, which again will drive costs. I do expect them to have some legislative changes, which I think are needed in the Affordable Care Act plan, because I can tell you, no one, and again, I'm a primary care physician, I've been practicing for about 2+ years now, no one will tell you that the Affordable Care Act plan is perfect, right? But there's not a person, but because of our, you know, division in Congress, no one wanted to make any changes to try to correct it, which is okay. We have Republican Congress, we got a Republican president, so, you know, now there's really no excuse of why things can't get done. So for my patients who are on the Affordable Care Act plan, you know, don't feel bad. Don't worry. Like, I tell them, I'm telling my patients probably like 5 to 10 times a week, like, no, don't worry, it's not going anywhere. Changes will come, yes, but it's not gonna just kind of disappear on us. And again, really because there's way too much money for it to disappear. So kind of backtracking and just kind of recollecting. Again, we talked about the Affordable Care Act plan. We talked about how it's not going anywhere despite all of the rhetoric that you're hearing in the news and from certain congressmen. Does it need to be improved? Yes. Will it be improved? I think so. I don't think they have any reason not to improve it anymore, because again, we got a Republican Congress, we got a Republican president coming up. So they're, if they got ideas, which we're still waiting. We're still waiting for a Republican idea of what they want to do to improve it. They don't know. But that's neither here or there. But I definitely think they will improve it. I definitely think competition is better, because again, I'm in the state of Florida. I only have 2 insurances to choose from with this Affordable Care Act plan. So we definitely need more, because more competition will bring back down the price for that standpoint there. So, but again, I'm a primary care physician. You're going to hear a lot of especially over the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear a lot of myths about the Affordable Care Act plan. So I hope you kind of use this video to kind of see some positive benefits from it. What I will do, I will put a link to a couple websites that kind of just give you some certain other facts, again, other pros and cons of Affordable Care Act plan and where we can improve from. I'll put that in the link at the end of this video. You guys, again, sorry I talked to you guys a little bit longer than I expected. You guys have a great and blessed day. If you have not had the chance, go ahead and download my free ebook at drpiersblog.com. Go ahead and you'll see it under the book section. If you want, you can text Dr. Barry at 44222 to get in my email list as well. That way, you'll be up to date as far as when we're doing these lunch and learns, what we'll be talking about. When new courses, new ebooks kind of come out, you'll be the first one to know. So go ahead, before you end this video, I want you to go ahead and like. Number 1, like. Number 2, share. And number 3, go to my website and get on my list. You guys have a great and blessed day. Bye.